Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Fox. I do planner things. And today I'm going to walk you through my Q2 setup for my HB90. This is a planning method that I started using at the beginning of the year, and it has really been a game changer for me for time management, especially as a person with ADHD. So I will post in the cards here if you want to see my first video that I did about HB90. It's a little bit of a longer video. It shows more of my setup, but it shows like the beginning parts of it. So I didn't do step by step exactly the same things this time because some of the prep work I felt like I didn't need to redo it for the next quarter. So that's the different things that you'll see. But I'm also going to go over, first of all, before we get into Q2, how my Q1 went and was I successful or not with that. So let's get into the planner here. You don't have to have a Richard Simmons inspiring cover if you don't want one, but you are welcome to print one and make one on your own if you do. Okay, so we're going to start back at Q1. So I'm going to go over how Q1 went for me. You can, like I said, you can go back to that video and you can watch my whole setup for that, and then you can see in more like granular detail how I set this up for the quarter and how I went through the pre-work to get to this point. So what I'm going to start with today though is showing you what my 3 goals were. So first of all, if you're unfamiliar, HB90 is a goal planning system set up by Sarah Cannon. I will link to all of her stuff below. So it's a goal setting system that helps you break things down into quarters. So the 4 quarters of the year. So your first one, I started with January. You can jump in at any time. So the new quarter will be starting July 1st. So you can jump in now. Now is the time to start thinking about it. And if you want to do the boot camp, which I do highly recommend, that'll be starting on June 16th. So you don't have to start at the beginning of the year, but you plan for 90 days at a time. So 90 days or 13 weeks-ish, depending on how the weeks break down and the days break down. But it's a planning system that helps you really understand, number one, what's most important to you for goals. And this is not just for the small goals like, you know, cleaning out a closet or working on a project in your lawn, although it can be, but it's more for the, what do you visualize your life? So when you do the pre-work, as you can see in my first video, a lot of it is like visualizing, thinking about where you want to be, what's your ideal life look like, describe your perfect day, like those kinds of things. That may seem a little woo-woo and out there and like, oh, I can't visualize what I want my ideal life, but I really think that it helps bring into focus what's important to you versus the things that you get hung up on and distracted by. So you'll see more as we go along through this. So what you do is at the start of every quarter, you will choose no more than 3 goals. You can choose 1 goal, 2 goals, 3 goals, but no more than 3 goals. And these goals will be big things. And then from there, you further break your goals down into projects, and then you further break your projects down into tasks. And this is how you get what you're going to work on. There's a lot of steps that lead up to that, and we will go into that. But I wanted to start by going over my first quarter, so my 2024 Q1, how I did with that. The cool thing is, which I'm going to show you later, is I use for my tasks and my project breakdown, I use a computer program called Notion. And what's neat about that, and I'll show you later whenever I show you my Q2 setup, is that when you check things off of your list, so you have your list of all of your tasks that you have to do in that quarter, it tells you each time you check one off, you can set it so that it'll tell you what percentage of your total tasks that you've achieved. So I will start by saying I had 3 goals, many tasks that were part of the projects of these 3 goals. And according to what at the end of the quarter, what my Notion came up to was that I achieved over 79%, which if you're a person with ADHD like I am, you probably know that it's very, very easy to start things and very exciting to start things, but not always so easy to follow through and especially less easy to finish them. And this planning system, like, I don't know why it worked so well with my brain, but it did. I think because time blindness is one of my biggest issues with ADHD. That is one of my biggest ADHD symptoms, is losing track of time, not accounting for how much time things take. That's a huge issue for me. And this system really helps you break that down and understand where your time's going, how much of your time is already accounted for with your day job or your family or your activities, and then how much time you actually have to work on your goals. To me, that was revolutionary. That was like, whoa. It's so easy to sit down and say, I have 7,000 things that I want to do and be like, I'm going to get them all done. But that's not going to happen. And then what happens is then you end up, at least in my situation, personally, if I do that and I bite off more than I can chew, then I start to feel bad about myself. And then that starts the ADHD cycling and the depression cycling and the anxiety cycling. And it's just this snowball that keeps going. So I think that's why I have really fallen in love with this system, is because it helps me to not do that. It helps me to see realistically, how much time do I have? What things do I want to work on? What things would make me feel awesome if I got them done? And then how do I fit that into the time that I have? Lots of prep discussion here. But what we're going to start in is going through my 3 goals. So like I said, according to my Notion, I achieved a little over 79% of the task that I set out to do. So my first goal was tidy my office to increase my productivity by 2 task blocks a day and reduce my anxiety by 10%. I just wanted to put in a quick note here. One of the things that Sarah has you do when you set up your goals is to put in a metric that you have not full control over. So for example, in this one, I said reduce my anxiety by 10%, increase my productivity by 2 task blocks a day. Would that really, do I have full control over this? Probably not. So you put in a goal. So that's why you'll see that I actually put numbers to things that I may not have had control over. How many followers are you going to add to your YouTube or your Instagram? You don't have full control over that, but you'll put in a number that you would like to hit. On my list of goals, I did every single task that I had set out, with the exception of just like a handful of small things. When I came to breaking this down into projects, I made all of these projects that you'll see here on this list. I really had great success with this one. This one was very easy for me to break down. Basically, at the start of the year, I was feeling like my office, my home in general, had like spiraled out of control with messiness and clutter. And ultimately, I want this year to be about working on creative projects. So my word for the year is create. And I really want this to be a year that I focus on getting back into writing more regularly, editing my book that I'm working on, finishing the book that I'm working on, and getting back into my scrapbooking projects, all the things that are like creative projects that really bring me joy, but often get pushed to the side because another part of my ADHD is that I have a hard time focusing if I'm in a cluttered environment. And it's very easy for me to be in a cluttered environment because it's just how my brain ends up going. So it's this like very not terrific cycle where I don't like it to be cluttered, but it is cluttered, but I have a hard time focusing to unclutter it. So I thought if I made this one of my big goals, then I would be more inclined to work on it. And I do feel like that is how it went down. So things that I had on here were to declutter my drawers and my closet in our bedroom because I wanted to have a nice, like comforting place to sleep at night and to relax and unwind that wasn't like laundry baskets on the floor and things. You know, the floor drobe, if you have ADHD, you know about the floor drobe. That's the clothes that you wore once. They're not really dirty enough to go into the laundry, but they're also not clean enough to really go back into the drawers. And you know you're going to wear them again later that week, so they end up in the floor drobe. Yeah. So I wanted to do some decluttering. I did really, really well with that, with the exception of I have some things still in the closet to finish up, and I think 1 drawer left that I didn't get to. And then my office was an absolute chaos mess. So if you followed my vlogs, you saw the before and after in the vlogs of my office. I'll see if I can post a before and after photo here. It was really just like a catch-all for like anything in the entire house that I didn't know where to put it. Like I'd be like, oh, just stick it in the office, just stick it in the office. And it had gotten super out of control. So I broke that down into the different things that needed to be tidied in here. One of the things was that there were things in here that were just out on the floor that had a home somewhere else in the house. So working on that. And then a lot of it was my scrapbooking supplies. I have scrapbooking kits that I have monthly subscription for. I have a collect ephemera. So ephemera would be menu from a restaurant that you go to, business card from a bakery that you go to, concert tickets, anything like that, receipts, anything like that that you would put into your scrapbook that is like from a moment that you actually physically got at the location where you were. Those were out of control. I needed to sort them. And then my washi tape was also out of control because I had stuff that I wasn't using. My drawers were overflowing, so that was another separate task. I had to get control of my filming apparatus for my YouTube channel. And then we had some other things like tidying up my desks and just like generic other housekeeping things that were bothering me. Basically the things that when I walked into a room, I felt stressed out by seeing how cluttered they were. Those went on the list. As you can tell, a couple things I delegated to husband. That worked out well for me. But I broke these things down into how many task blocks they would take me. And then when I was doing my weekly plan, I could say, okay, I have time to work on it today. I have 4 task blocks. I know that I need to put away my scrapbooking kits and that's going to take me 4 task blocks. Let me do that. So This worked super well for me. This really helped me plot out when I had time to work on it. And then it made it more almost like a game that I was like, okay, set the timer. We have 2 task blocks. We're gonna do 25 minutes of decluttering and then a 5-minute break to get a cup of coffee and then 25 more minutes. You know, it makes it, I don't know, it made it more achievable for me because it really helped me play into my strengths and not do my traps. So with my ADHD, I know that I have traps that I can fall into. And this really helped me setting timers and designating how much time. And this, I think I did a really good job in Q1 of estimating how much these things would take me. I really got a solid handle on that. So it went super duper well, my goal 1. My goal number 2 was to build a consistent YouTube posting routine to grow my channel to 150 followers. I didn't get to 150 followers, but I got to 125, I think, by the end of the quarter, and now I'm up to 100, almost 130. So it really did grow my channel by like almost, I think about 20. I got about 20 new followers, which is a lot for a small channel like me. So what I did for this one was that I broke it down into the videos. So I do a plan with me every week and I do a vlog every week. So I basically sat down and I tried to figure out how long each thing takes me. So when you hear me talk about task blocks, we'll talk about that more coming up in my Q2 setup. When you hear me talk about task blocks, that's a 30-minute chunk of time. So it's based on the Pomodoro method. So it's 25 minutes of work and a 5-minute break. And so that is how these are broken down, is into task blocks. So 2 task blocks make an hour of work basically. So what I did was I tried to think about all the individual steps for each video. So for when I do a plan with me, I have to choose and then often print and cut my planner spread. Sometimes I have ones that I have pre-purchased that are already cut for me, but a lot of times I print them at home and cut them on my portrait machine. Choose and then possibly print and cut the planner spread. Then I have to film the plan with me, and then I have to edit the plan with me, and then I have to upload it, make a description, and make a thumbnail for it. So I tried to break that down, thinking that filming each one would take me 2 task blocks or about an hour of time. Editing one really only takes me about 2 tasks. It ends up being about 30 minutes of footage. I gave myself an hour for the filming because I have to do setting up and tearing down all my equipment and everything, making sure my camera battery is charged. That's a big one with me. But the actual video ends up being about 30 minutes. And to edit a plan with me takes about twice as long as the video. So if the video is 30 minutes, it takes about 60 minutes to edit. So 2 task blocks for that. I gave 1 task block a week, so 30-minute time for choosing the kit and then printing or cutting it. And then I gave myself another 30-minute chunk for creating the thumbnail and writing the description and title. I'm really bad at writing YouTube descriptions. That's probably not helping me get any new followers, but I'm trying my best. So I've factored in how much those would take. For my vlogs, I don't really factor in time to film them because I just kind of film them as life is happening. But I figured that it's usually taking me, for each one, about 4 task blocks, so 2 hours per vlog. And the vlogs are different in length depending on the week, depending if it's a work week versus an off week. So I stuck to this so well. Having this chart, having this idea of how much time it took, setting aside days that I was going to work on it, setting aside the time that I was going to work on it. This was like, I don't know, I keep saying this like revolutionized my life, but it did. This clicked for me in a way that made this like finally achievable that I've been trying to get onto. I'm not on a perfect schedule. Sometimes I only do my planner. Most of the time I start my planner on Wednesday, y'all know. I don't know what it is. Wednesdays are when I start to plan. But I was very, very consistent in the first quarter about getting 2 videos out every single week because I had this guideline to set it out. There were a couple things that I had hoped to do, one of which was to do a flip through video of my 2023 planner. That I didn't get to. I wanted to do some goal setting videos, and the only one I got to was the HB90 setup. That's fine. I ended up just deciding not to worry about it. So I didn't hit every single thing on here, but pretty good. And I also made a new channel description, which I broke that down into steps, and I said, okay, I'm gonna watch a video about how to do this with advice about how to do this. And then I used a ChatGPT program to figure out how to make it sound nice. I did these different steps and I broke it down so I could be like, okay, today you're spending 30 minutes watching videos about how to make the best description for your channel. Okay, today you're spending 30 minutes thinking about what your keywords are for your channel. So I think that has helped. So goals 1 and 2, baller, knocked it out of the park, did awesome. Goal number 3 was the weakest link. So goal number 3 for quarter 1 was to dedicate time each day to creative pursuits that will help inspire me to finish. My work in progress is its working title is Chalet Chalet, because that's the name of the ski lodge in the book. That's not the official title of what the book is going to be, but that's the working title. So dedicate time each day to creative pursuits that will help inspire me to finish Chalet Chalet in quarter 2. I had just come off of Nano in November, and then the chaos of Vlogmas and December Daily in December. So I didn't want to try to put writing actually on my list unless like I wanted to. I thought I would give myself, like, I could do 1 sprint a week with the heart breathing sprints. And then that would be like, you know, kind of satisfy that, like, I want to write, but then it wouldn't put pressure on me to like a word count goal or an hours of editing or anything like that. I wanted to focus on other creative things that would get me excited about being more creative and like kind of get the creative mindset in place and get me back into the swing of creativity every day instead of just being a little worker bee who does chores and goes to work and doesn't work on creative stuff. So I wanted to focus on the non-writing related things. So my morning routine, my journaling every day, editing my pictures, working on my scrapbook, and then working on my one little word scrapbooking project. This was probably the hardest one for me because I didn't really set solid goals on this. So I set out like what I wanted to do, my tasks, and I kind of tried to estimate how long they would take, but I didn't put them dedicated times into my planner. So when I did my Notion for these two, I looked at things and I was like, okay, I know January, my mom's gonna come over and help me with my washi tape. I got time here, I'm off this day, we can do this. I knew like every week I'm putting in this time on this day, this time on this day, and that's for YouTube stuff. And this was like, well, this all fill in the blanks when I have other time available. So for this one, I didn't really put in dedicated time. I was just like, oh, well, there's a spare time, that's what I'll fit it in. And that's what I found didn't work for me. So the beautiful thing about HB90 is that you redo it every 90 days. So every 90 days you take another look at it and you go, what worked, what didn't work? For me, one of the things that I found out is that when we travel, the weekly vlog editing goes from about 4 task blocks to significantly more. How much did I end up setting aside? 6 or 7 hours, okay. So whereas like a regular week when I'm home or working and I'm not traveling, those vlogs will take me about 2 hours or 4 task blocks to edit the bulk of them. I found out, and I made a note in one of my pages here for quarter 2, is that when we're traveling, it takes longer. So vacation vlogs take longer. When we went to Vegas, my mom and I went to Death Valley in Vegas in January, and I vlogged that whole week. It took me about 6 or 7 hours. So significantly longer. So 12 to 14 task blocks instead of 4. So that was something that I really like. I realized probably time that I would have been spending on one of these other goals, I did end up having to use more time to do the vacation vlogs because we had 2 trips in quarter 1. And I love to travel. Travel is a big part of my vision for myself and my vision for my ideal life, so I can't just give up the travel. But I had to be more realistic in quarter 2 about that. So I realized I didn't really set aside the time. I just thought I would fill in the time for these things when I would get to the day and be like, oh, well, I'm only spending 4 task blocks today on my decluttering project, so the rest of the day will go to this. And it just didn't work out that way. I needed to be more detailed and granular about what days I was going to actually take this time. So that was the one that was like the weakest of the 3, but I still made a lot of progress. I still edited a ton of photos. I didn't really do any writing, and I didn't really work on my one little word very much, but I worked on my morning routine. I worked on editing pictures, and I made some progress, and I learned things that I can use for the next time. So that's how the goals went for the first quarter. Now let's dive into quarter 2. Also, I'm super hoping that you can see this, that I have this on the right angle. I tried to get the framing closer so that you can maybe read stuff better, but we'll see. So at the end of quarter 1, you start your quarter 2. And so I did do a wrap up here of how the quarter went. At the end of every month, at the end of every week, you do a weekly check-in. Then you do setting up your goals for the next week. And then at the end of every month, you do a monthly review. And at the end of the quarter, you do your quarterly review. So I'm gonna go through this real quickly and then we'll go into quarter 2. So The first question is, what did you accomplish this quarter? Make a list of all the major projects you completed. How will you reward yourself for getting so much done this quarter? You did an amazing job. So I said 5 things. Decluttered most of my drawers, tidied my damn office. That was in all capital letters with a bunch of exclamation points because I was really excited about it. Got my crafting and scrapbooking supplies in so much better order. I actually wrote outside of November. So I did actually write. I had a goal to write 5,000 words in March. It was not actually in here, but it was a goal that I set with my writing partner, Stevie, and I actually did it because I was like, I put a little reward on that. So what was my reward for that? If I rewarded myself that if I wrote 5,000 words in the month of March, then I could book my little writer retreat for September when I'm hoping to be doing like final edits on my book. So that was my little carrot. My carrot was a trip to Palm Springs, and so I'm gonna get that carrot in September. And then finally I said, stuck to my YouTube posting, I got 20 new followers. So what tasks didn't you get done that you had hoped to have finished by the end of the quarter? Will you move to the next quarter or let them go? So I said scrapbooking, and then I wrote as usual, because that is always, it's something that I love, but I have this mental block of how long it takes me, and I just will put that off because I'll be like, I don't have 4 hours to sit down and do it. We'll work on that. I said, I'll definitely continue working on this one with a more concrete plan. I said, the last few tidying and decluttering things, I'll move these over to my Moxie Life goals and keep trying to finish them. So I didn't think I needed to have a goal set aside in here to really break down the last remaining decluttering things, but I can put them in my Moxie Life goals that I do monthly, and I can get them checked off my list through there. And then writing. I said I kind of knew that writing wouldn't happen, so I planned for that to be my quarter 2 focus. But I say that, and then I'm telling you up here, like I wrote 5,000 new words, so that's pretty exciting. Like that's big for me to write outside of November in the past few years. Really, I will write for NaNoWriMo, and then I will just put it away. So, has your vision for your ideal life changed over the quarter? If so, how has it changed, and what areas are clearer for you now than they were before? And I said, I think it's still the same goal, but I feel more prepared for it. I truly hit my stride with HB90. Are there any time sinks or distractions that you need to be aware of as you plan the next quarter? And I said doom scrolling, because that is such an easy way to get distracted for me. I will pick up my phone to answer a text message, and the next thing I know, it's half an hour later and I've been on Instagram the whole time. So it's very easy for me to get sucked into it, and I don't have if I don't have concrete plans written down. If I have like, oh, I have to leave the house, then I will stop. But if I don't, And the other distraction I listed was future worrying. I said, I'm not handling uncertainty well. I need to work on putting those thoughts away. At the end of the quarter, we found out that my partner at work was leaving. We've been working together as partners for 5 years now. And so we had a bunch of uncertainty about that. We got a new boss, we had a new district, like a whole bunch of different changes with work came. And I was just really very stressed about that and how that would affect like my home life because my work-life balance is very, very difficult a lot of the time. So when I was filling this out, that was really on my mind, and I know that I was distracted worrying about what was going to happen. So what could you improve for the next quarter? Why? And what is your plan for making this happen? I said dedicating time to writing or scrapbooking, specifically setting aside the time. And I said going to put this into Notion and use my daily pages. And I also said trying to manage my worry and depression. And then I talked about how to manage that would be setting up interruptions. So when I start to like spiral with anxiety or depression cycles, get up and go for a walk, go outside, go move out of the room, do an exercise, like do something physical to interrupt the brain pattern. What are you most proud of in the past 3 months? What worked best for you this quarter and why? I said finally getting my office organized and under control, making time for writing in March, and staying on top of my YouTube posting. I was proud of all of those things. So what percentage of your tasks or projects did you complete? Did you hit the outcome goals you set for yourself? So this was at 78.2%, but now when I just logged on, there must have been something I completed after the quarter and I went and checked off because I had 79.13% on my Notion right now. I just left a couple things off, decluttering, decided not to do the goal videos for YouTube, but creativity was the hardest part, as we just talked about. Did you feel that your goals and projects this quarter moved you closer towards your ideal life, and in what way? How can you set even better goals next quarter? And I said, absolutely feel so much less chaotic in my house. There's still work to do, but it's much improved. And I said, I learned so much about how my brain works best, and I'm excited to keep moving forward. Did your goals or projects make you feel overwhelmed throughout the quarter, or did you feel empowered? What can you change for the next quarter? And I said, sometimes a little overwhelmed, but much better than usual. And when I started to feel overwhelmed or like I was falling behind, I just reminded myself that I could get back on track the next day or so, even the next quarter if I needed to, and that really worked for me. I think this was, looking at it as quarterly goals instead of an annual goal was huge for me. So I've done power sheets in the past, and I started with Moxie Life this year. Actually, no, I think I was doing Moxie Life last year too, and I just wasn't keeping up with it very well. But those two systems are set up that you make annual goals, and then you do quarterly goals. But there's always those annual goals that are like, set the tone for the year. And I felt so often with those systems that if I didn't stick to them, if I got off track at all for them, then it was like, well, I have to wait until January. I have to wait, and I know that's not like really how it is. That's how your mind processes it. But that was a big struggle for me. And by this program, just setting every 90 days, there's not that pressure, because it's like, well, in 90 days, I can scrap it and start over. Like, you get a January every 90 days, if you think of it that way with this program. And I think that was what, when she says, how did you feel empowered? That's how I felt empowered. I felt like, okay, I'm not stuck to this for 12 months. I'm stuck to this for 3 months, and if it's not working, then I can change it. So in what ways did you support yourself and your mental health this quarter? How can you continue to do this even more in the next quarter? And I said, LOL, haha. I said, I tried to make sure I did things to build me up spiritually, like going to the desert, try to set some boundaries, not great, but a few. Boundaries are not my strong suit. I'm not very good at it. I know it's what I have to work on. I said, I can continue to try to set boundaries. I can work on compartmentalizing work stress and worries, not letting it detract from stuff that I'm trying to work on when I'm not at work. What habits can you cultivate in the upcoming quarter to bring even more success to your 90-day plan? I said, being consistent with my morning routine, journaling every day, and stopping myself from doom scrolling. I said, for the final question, are there any other important notes you want to make about how you did this quarter? And I said, I am overall very proud of myself and my progress. Oh, I am proud of myself. And you know who else is proud of me? Richard Simmons. He believes in me, and I'm going after my dreams, and he says I'm worth it. Highly recommend making yourself a motivational Richard Simmons binder cover. All right, so let's jump into quarter two. Even if you've already done the boot camp, do the boot camp again. It's just so helpful. So Sarah does a 7-day HB90 boot camp. She breaks it down. If you remember from the first video that I made, she breaks it down into 7 days, and that way you don't get overwhelmed. If you have the time, you can do more than one day's stuff at a time, but it really does take a long time to go through this thoroughly. And if you can separate it out by the days, it really, really helps, because then you can walk away from it, come back to it, you get that fresh perspective. So I feel like this time around, I may have done it. I don't think it took me the full 7 days. I think I combined a couple of days, but still, it's really helpful to go back through and to be on the same, to go through daily whenever the boot camp is running. So once you do the boot camp once, you get a lifetime membership to redo it. So she runs it every quarter. And once you sign up the first time, then you can go back in every single time. You can go back in whenever, but every time that the program runs, you can go in and do it day by day alongside everybody else. And that's really nice, because then if you have questions and you're working through, like for example, I didn't know how much of this I was going to, my ideal day and my vision board, I didn't know if I was going to do that. I did a vision board at the beginning, but I don't think my vision board has really changed at all. Loving my life in 2024. Layla Grace is the center of my world, of course. Like, I don't think any of this has changed. This is all still goals, things that I want to happen, things that I've visualized will happen, things that I enjoy doing. So I didn't feel like I needed to do that, but I reached out to people in the group and said, hey, do I have to do this part every time? Do you do this part every time? And you have this, you can talk to people because you're all working through this together. What I did go back and do again was the vision statement things. So first of all, the first page here, what does success look like to you? Get specific. Here's what I have. Being able to make a living doing creative things such as writing and YouTube. Not having the Sunday scaries all the time over work, feeling emotionally free to be present, go after things that I love and things that make me feel happy and alive. That to me means not feeling guilty when I choose to go out with my friend for a walk instead of doing the dishes, or not feeling guilty if I don't pick up a shift when they ask me to pick up a shift because I already have plans to hang out with husband that night. So feeling emotionally free to be present in my own life. Not having to leave Layla Grace at home because I leave the house for work. I would love to be able to be home with her all the time. If you're new here, Layla Grace is my dog. She's adorable and perfect. She's the one that's snoring in the background, if you can hear that, sorry. She's so perfect. Oh my goodness. Feeling confident in myself and my abilities and my worth. That's a big struggle, especially if you have ADHD. You probably also struggle with this. I mean, a lot of us struggle with it, but it's a big part of ADHD is self-acceptance and not leaning into the self-hate that sometimes comes so easily. Having a tidy and cozy home that gives me the mental space to flourish. Managing my ADHD. Having the mental space to spend time doing things I love. And not feeling guilty for refilling the well. That's a big thing for me. If I'm like, have stuff to do, if I know I have chores, if I know that I didn't do my fitness, if I know I have to make dinner, then I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be doing these things, like sitting down and reading for a while, or playing World of Warcraft with my mom, or, you know, going to the cemetery to write. And I want to not feel guilty when I choose those things, because those things are important. Those things make me feel good. So then there's a set of questions here that go along with this, more about trying to find out what's important to you, what's really important. What if everything was perfect? What would your ideal world be like? So in order to consider yourself a success, what are the main things you feel that you need to accomplish? I said 3 things. 1, grow a solid following on YouTube and social media. 2, finish writing, edit, and sell my book. And 3, make enough money from writing and YouTube to make a living so that I can travel around with Layla Grace in a van and live our best life. What are the top 3 things that matter most to you in your life? I said Layla Grace, feeling alive and in awe of the world around me, seeking beauty and wonder in everything, and knowing my self-worth and feeling like what I do and who I am matters. Self-acceptance is a big part of my journey. I've worked on it many, many years in therapy and will continue to work on it probably forever. So why are these things so important? I said, I truly believe we should make the most of our time here on Earth, and we should try to constantly be learning, growing, experiencing wonder and joy. Why did you start writing in the first place? I said, I feel like it was just always part of me. I always loved books and reading, and I wanted to make my own stories, even when I was a little kid. I love the vision of myself as a writer and a creative. That feels like my most authentic self. Has your reason for writing changed over time, and if so, in what way? I said, yes, I feel like the past few years I have written because that's what I do. But the passion hasn't been the same. Not until this past November of 2023 did I start to feel that drive again. That's a big thing for me. I have written, like I said, since I was a little kid. I was always writing stories when I was little, making my own little books and things. And I started doing National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo, in 2002 in college. And I have done it every single year since then. I have always hit the 50,000 words, knock on wood. And for years, I would like write in November, and then I'd spend the rest of that year editing that book. I didn't do anything with it. In 2008, my book, I did try to send query letters. I really struggled with that for a number of reasons. And one of them being the self-acceptance, another one being a toxic person in the writing community that I was connected to, really making me have self-doubt. So a number of things prevented me from following through with that or really giving it a good effort. I felt like every time I tried that, I would sit down to write this letter and I'd be like, I can't make this person believe in me because I don't believe in myself. Which sounds harsh, but that was how it felt. And I think that whole situation of workshopping a book and really editing a book and feeling really good about it and then trying to query for agents and then not being able to do it, or the couple that I actually did send getting rejected, that really just broke me down and I just stopped. I mean, I kept doing Nano. I have been a municipal liaison running the Pittsburgh chapter since 2008 and with my 2 friends for the last, I think, 10 years. But I would just write in November and then just kind of let it go. And I just felt like, with the exception of this weird little blip in 2017, when my dear friend and I were hanging out all the time and we were like, let's go on a creative date. And we would go and I would write and he would draw, and we would like work on our creative projects and like keep each other motivated, with the exception of that little blip in like 2017 that we were doing that for the whole summer. I really have just like kept my books in November. And that's not what I ever envisioned that I would do. It's not what I wanted to do, but it's what ended up happening to me because I had so much self-doubt. And so this past year, a lot of things, getting diagnosed with ADHD at age 40, starting to work with a psychiatrist, get on medication, starting to understand, starting to learn new tactics, and then finally finding this after November. But November this year was the first time that I felt in years like, I want to keep going with this book. I want to see what happens. I want my characters to finish telling me their story, and I want to see where this goes. And I kept thinking about this book and wanting to work on it, and it was just like, whoa. So for the first time, I felt like, okay, maybe it's worth it to keep going with this. And then I started doing HB90, and I was like, wait a minute, I have a way to make a plan that I can actually do this. So it's exciting. I feel like excited about it. So that was my long essay that I wrote. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Yeah. Has my reason for writing changed over time? Oh yeah, it's been a roller coaster. So final question, if there were no limits to what you could accomplish, what would your grandest goals be and why? I said, I would love to do van life and see the country with Layla Grace, be a successful and beloved author who is down to earth and accessible to her fans, run Badwater 135. Okay, that's an ultra marathon in Death Valley in the hottest part of July. It's 135 miles, and I will never be able to do it unless I am not working a corporate job and train a lot and get used to the heat. But it's my dream. And then have vacation homes in the Finger Lakes and Palm Springs. If there were no limits to what I could accomplish, we would do all these things. So then we look at the previous quarter and what changes we want to make and what improvements we want to do for the next quarter. So thinking back on the previous quarter, how would you like this next quarter to be different? What can you do to support this ideal vision for your life? So I said, I want to be more focused and concrete about my creative goals. Using Notion was huge for me in quarter one. I want to use that more for my creative goals this time, and setting aside dedicated time, more granular breakdowns of my time. And I put a reminder to myself that says, remember, the creative goals are just as important as the, quote, matters of consequence. So the chores, the laundry, the fitness, all of those things. If you could choose one word to describe how you most want to feel in the upcoming quarter two, what would it be and why? And I said fire. I said I want to feel energized, creative, fired up and excited, firing on all cylinders, passionate and inspired. That sounds pretty good, right? That sounds like if we could make that happen, that'd be like pretty sweet. In order for this quarter to be a success, what is the one thing you most want to accomplish? And I said getting very close to a first draft of Chalet Chalet. That's my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is to have the first draft mostly done by August, and then do Publish and Thrive course in August, and then workshop and revise and edit and have it to beta readers by my birthday. That's my dream. But anyway, we don't know if we're there yet. How will accomplishing this help move you towards your larger vision for your life? And I said, this is the book that I want to workshop and publish. This is the first step in my author career. What are you most excited about for the upcoming quarter? I said writer dates with myself, working in time dedicated to creative projects like scrapbooking, feeling like a writer, travel season beginning, spending time in the world of Chalet Chalet, warm weather, and being outside. So the next page is to do your ideal daydreaming. So it says, space below, write out the details of how you imagine your ideal day. Get specific. What types of things would you like to do more of? How would you like to feel? Use this as a dreaming exercise. So my ideal day says, wake up before the sun and journal, light candles, and have coffee. Important note, I do not wake up with anxiety that makes me nauseous. Important note. Spend time with Layla Grace. Go for a run or a hike or some kind of fitness. Do a good stretch. Then I have lunch and writing time at a coffee shop or bar. Spend a couple of hours scrapbooking, cook a healthy meal, and then relax with a true crime documentary. Do a skincare routine and floss and read in bed for 15 minutes like a real grown-up. That's my ideal day. Yes, I put true crime documentaries on my ideal day. So, the next step is to declutter your brain. I feel like this is pretty unique to Sarah's system here. So what you do is you make 3 lists, what you need to do, what you should do, and what you want to do. The best way that I can think of to describe these things are, what you need to do is things that you're already committed to, that you know you have to do. For example, I'm training for the Fargo Marathon, which is on Saturday, and so I know I have to do my marathon training. I know that I have to order my HelloFresh every single Friday, and that takes up some time. I know that I have these trips planned. So these are the things that no matter what, I gotta get them done. What you should do is things that you feel like, no, maybe I should be doing that. Or you see somebody else doing it. And I see, for example, I have a friend of mine who is working on her book, and she made an author Instagram. So she has her regular Instagram, and then she has her author Instagram. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should be doing that. Maybe I should have my author Instagram where I talk about my writing. So it's things that you see other people having success doing, or that someone has told you that you should do, like picking up shifts at work, like those kinds of things that you're like, I don't know, but you're thinking about it. And then we have what you want to do. This is the stuff that like you super duper want to do. If all conditions were perfect, you'd be like, these are the things that I'm going to do. I'm going to knock them off. These are the things that I want on my need to do list. But right now, they're just things that I want to do that I maybe am not making the time for right now. So then you write down these things, right? So we got our need to do, should do, our want to do, and then you come here and you say, what is the priority for each item on these lists? What you want to look at is this little chart here. So does it move you towards your vision? So me in a van with Layla Grace traveling around on my book tour, or does it not move you towards your vision? So you evaluate those two things, and then you look at the impact. So it's a low short-term impact or a high short-term impact. The way that I think about this is low short-term impact means it's not really going to make me feel good right now. Then you ask yourself, is it going to move me towards my final goal, or is it just something that's a distraction? If it has a high short-term impact, that means if I do this today, then I'm going to feel good tomorrow. So you look at everything that's on your 3 list and you ask where it falls here, where it falls here, and that's how you determine what you're going to do. So your important tasks are things that move you towards your vision but have a low short-term impact. So for example, for me, working on my book might be an important task. Working on my book definitely is going to get me towards my long-term goal. But like if I write today, is it going to make me feel less chaotic or better tomorrow? I mean, it might, but it might not, because I'm not going to notice the effects of actually working on the book. So then things that are unimportant are things that don't move you towards your vision and are low short-term impact. So these are the things, just take it off a list, write it down, crinkle it up, throw it away. You're not even going to think about those things. Then there's the danger zone, which are things that do not move you towards your vision but have a high short-term impact. So what she says for this one is to only do these things if you have a short-term need that trumps your long-term vision. For me, this is like, I don't want to pick up a shift. Picking up an extra shift in my corporate job does not move me towards my goal of being a published author, going on a book tour in a van with my dog. But maybe I want to take a trip so that I can do my writer retreat. So maybe if I pick up a shift, it's going to give me the high short-term impact of the money to pay for my writer retreat, even though it's not really moving me towards my vision necessarily. So those are the things that like, only do it if you have to. Like it could easily be a distraction, like, ooh, I'm going to make some money right now. But it's like, yeah, do you need that extra money right now? Or should you spend that time working on your book that's going to be the thing that you try to publish, and then you go to your van with your dog? Finally, we have the sweet spot. So these are things that move you towards your vision and have a high short-term impact. So that's the things you want to prioritize right now. You want to do those first, and then your important tasks, which have the lower short-term impact, but are big for your long-term impact. So I color-coded these. So we got like this purple here for the sweet spot, orange for the important tasks, green for the cut it out of your life, and blue for the danger zone. So I went through and everything that was on these lists, I assigned them a color. My things that were important on my what I need to do, so these are things that are essential for my long-term success but have a low short-term impact. One is I have to work out a swap schedule for my dance group that I'm with my partner at work for the shoot that I have, the video shoot that we're doing in the fall. So then I was a hill runner for the Pittsburgh Half Marathon. I had already committed to that. I don't think that necessarily was having a short-term impact, but I think it did in the end. Now that that's behind me, I think it actually had a bigger shorter-term impact than I gave it credit for. Finish my draft of Chalet, start working in my garden, which I'm hopefully going to finish in July. That was my original plan, to start that in Q3. Work on my one little word scrapbooking and make a scrapbooking plan. So those two, the scrapbooking things, I kind of put in between the sweet spot and the important, because it was on my goals, but not necessarily going to give me that short-term impact. So those I kind of gave both color to. For my need to do, I didn't have any unimportant ones, so none of the green. I had two things that were the danger zone. So they were, don't move me towards my vision, but I have a high short-term impact. Those are both work related. I had a work meeting and CPR training. Does not move me towards my goal of being a writer, but necessary for me to keep my job. So the biggest thing that I had on here were sweet spot things, because these are all things that I had to do. Training for the Fargo Marathon, that has an immediate impact because that is June 1st. Stevie and I were trying to set up a silent co-working writer group for the 3 months. Ordering our HelloFresh every Friday. We had 2 trips, so we had our trip to see the eclipse, and then we had Go Wild in I had Go Wild in Dallas. The eclipse trip was a family trip, me only for Go Wild in Dallas. Those 2 were trips in April. Order my contact cards for Go Wild, I needed to do that. Then our California trip that we just got home from. Then the Fargo Marathon trip, but I leave tomorrow. Keeping the house tidy, setting up a solid morning routine schedule, my weekly plan with me and vlog for my YouTube channel, the goal videos, the HB90, which I'm filming right now, and the Moxie Life, which I don't know if I'm going to get into a groove with that or not, we'll see. Plan and book our August road trip details. That's on one of my big goals. Take the bag to Goodwill. Oh wow, I forgot I put that on here. And then planning our Dave-cation trip. So we're going to see Dave Matthews Band. So those are all things that I feel like I had to do them. They were on my commitment list and I had to get them done. What I should do, we're just gonna these are all gonna go. So things that I said were in the danger zone, like I said, picking up shifts at work. Then I said going back to therapy. I've thought about going back to therapy, and what I finally reasoned with myself is I have no clue if this would help or it would just stress me out at this point, because if my therapist that I had gone to for years was still around, I think I would just be like, I'm gonna schedule a couple tune-up sessions with her and it would not be a big deal. And I think it would benefit me, but she retired, and so I would have to get an entirely new therapist and go through all of those sessions where you're like, this is who I am, this is what's wrong with me. So I don't know. So I put that in the danger zone because it's possible it would have a short-term impact, but it's possible it would just stress me out. And then making an author account for Instagram. And again, I said, not sure if this would have any impact. Can I just have my one Instagram and talk about my writing stuff on there? Unclear. So those things I put as danger zone, that keep it in mind, but don't focus on it. And then the thing that I said I should do that is unimportant, and I'm going to get rid of that idea completely, is respond to everyone's text as soon as they send them. I need to set boundaries. I'm not good at this. I need to take time for myself, learn how to use the do not disturb function on my phone, and yeah, so respond to everybody's text ASAP. We put that as unimportant. We're not doing that. What I want to do, I only had sweet spot or danger zone here. These are the only things that we had. So we'll start with sweet spot, doom scroll and disassociate less. Clearly, I should be doing that. Workout right after work. I put that in between the two things. It's important for me to get a workout in of some kind every day because I do feel better when I do that. But is it important to do it right after work? Is it okay if I take time to just de-stress beforehand? Unclear. Try new restaurants. I said that is something that refills the well. That is something that makes me feel good, and I should be definitely making time for that. I did put on here remodel the bathroom as a danger zone because that's something that I think would have a pretty significant short-term impact. But did you see on my list was remodeled bathroom on my vision board? There's no bathroom on here that's remodeled, right? So it doesn't move me towards my vision, but might be pretty nice after a run to just be able to soak in a hot tub. We don't have a usable bathtub right now, so I put that on the danger zone, but then I put on the sweet spot maybe a short-term fix so that I can use the bathtub if we can get the issue fixed. So that's usable. Maybe I could do that. Other things that I want to do: be a successful YouTuber, stick to mindful eating, lose some weight, get better at routines, like myself more. That is the sweet spot. We got to do that. It's going to move me towards my vision. It's going to have an immediate short-term impact. See the penguin parade at the zoo. I'd love to do that, and work out every day. Again, good for my mental health. Things that I would like to do that I thought were more towards the danger zone, that like, I don't think I have time this quarter, were remodel the bathroom, obviously. We talked about that. Catch up on my 365 project, which is a photography project that I have been doing since 2013, I think, and I'm very behind on it. Not on the taking of the pictures, just on the categorizing of pictures. Start a DMB almanac notebook. I wanted to like keep track of all my shows and like write down notes about my shows and what songs I've seen, whatever. Eat that weird cheese pizza. There's this pizza in Pittsburgh that they put the cheese on cold, but it's supposed to be really good. So I was like, I don't know. And start a national park log memory book. Same kind of thing as the DMB almanac book. I would like to like make these little like mini scrapbook kind of things for myself. But is it really what I should be spending my time on? Probably not. Okay. Oh, this is a lot, y'all. This is a lot. We're going to pause. We're going to come back. Okay, I am back. So the next part we're going to talk about are the task blocks. And so as I've already mentioned, task blocks are 30-minute chunks of time. Based on the Pomodoro method, 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of break. So this, I think, was the biggest eye-opener for me when I did HB90 the first time. And it's very similar the second time, the way that I have it set up. So the first thing that you do, you get these sheets that go, I don't know what the original hours were on them, but I changed mine to 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. I think they must have been a little bit later. Maybe it was 6 to 11 or something like that. But I do like to get up earlier, so I waited it out and I changed it to be my schedule. You can change these to be whatever. If you worked overnights, you could do, change them to that, whatever. But it has the breakdown of every half-hour block, reasonably speaking, not including your sleep, for the week. And then the first thing that you do is you put in your non-negotiables. So for me, that's my day job. Now you'll see I have 2 of these. If you're new here, I'm a pharmacist and we work 7 on, 7 off. So we switch on Wednesdays. So Wednesday is either your first day of 7 days in a row or your first day of 7 days off. So what made the most sense for me was to make 2 separate weeks. So this is my short work week where I only work Monday and Tuesday, and my long work week where I'm off Monday and Tuesday and then I work the rest of the week. You can also set this up to be a Monday start or a Sunday start. She has all these different customizations that you can get when you get this planner. So another note, this planner comes to you free the quarter that you do the boot camp. So when you sign up for the boot camp, all of this to download is free. You can print it in, I have it 8.5 by 11 in a binder. You can print it to fit A5. You can customize if it's a Sunday start or a Monday start. I have mine so that it's a Monday start for the weeks, but the monthly calendar is a Sunday start, so that's kind of how my regular planner is as well. So there's all those customizations that you can make. So once you get to this, mine is a Monday start. So I have my short work week and my long work week. Obviously, I have a bunch of different amount of time. So when my shifts are 9 to 7. So the first thing I did was I went in and I blocked off, this is my work. And I wrote including my commute. Thankfully, the store that I work at is very close to my home, so I don't have a very long commute. So I blocked off until 7:30 each work day, or the weekends we work until 5, and then it's till 5:30. And then I blocked off a half an hour beforehand, which is to like get dressed, brush my teeth, get my lunch together, get my coffee, whatever. So I blocked off that time prior to work every day that I need to get ready. Then I blocked off my goal bedtime is between 10 and 10:30. Usually 10:30. So I blocked off from 10:30 to 11 to be sleep. I get up, I like to get up, I set my alarm to get up at 5, and then I like to like read my phone in bed, get my eyes awake. I know you're not supposed to do that, but the blue light seems to help me wake up more, so I block this first half hour to be for like getting up, taking my medicine, going to the bathroom, wandering downstairs and getting my water. And then I'm like, okay, 5:30, we're ready to rock and roll. So the way I have my planner set up, the green on here is the stuff that I can't change. So I have to be sleeping at sometimes. I go to work. I put in other things that happen every single week. We have our weekly conference call on Wednesdays. This is probably going to change because we have a new supervisor now. But when I did this schedule, that's when ours was Wednesdays. I am a volunteer at the shelter, so every other Thursday, I walk dogs from 7 to 9. Again, it's from 7 to 9, but I gave myself this extra time here because I have to get down there. I go for lash extensions every other week, so I blocked off time for that. I have to go to the grocery store every other week, so I block time off for that. And then I meal prep for work, so I block time off for that. So those green things are things that happen every single week. The work is very rigid. The dog schedule is pretty rigid. And the groceries, meal prep, and lashes, I estimated for how long those things take me every week. The next thing that I put in is that I try to do some kind of fitness every day. I'm a distance runner. I'm training for a marathon right now, which is coming up in 4 days. Oh my God. So I put in time. Now, do I always take time for fitness? Maybe not, but I try to. I know I feel better when I'm doing that every day. That's really helps my mental health. And I obviously need to do running because I need to train for my races. So in the yellow things here, that's where I put time for fitness. So I put into it, again, am I gonna work out 90 minutes? No, but I put 90 minutes aside because that includes getting dressed for my workout, doing my workout, stretching after, showering after. So I have dance class every Wednesday night, so those are in there. I always do my long run on the weekend, generally speaking, unless there's some kind of special circumstance. So I put my long run, I usually do it on Sundays on my long work week, on Saturdays on my short work week. I have longer runs on my off weekend, so that accounted for more time here than there. We do track Tuesdays, so I have that included in here. So I put in all my fitness. I set aside time for that because I figured that's something I want to do every day, that I do most days already, and I wanted to make sure I had the time for it. And then this is when you go, okay, what do I do with the empty spaces? So when I first set this up, I set in all of those things, everything that was in the orange here and the blue was an empty space. And then I could decide, how much do I reasonably want to spend? The big important thing is that you have to build in buffer time. You are not a machine, you are not a robot, you are not an AI generated little human. You are a real person. So you have to build in buffer time. You're going to have hair appointments, doctor's appointments, coffee with a friend, a day when you just feel like absolute garbage, a day when your friend feels like absolute garbage and needs you, vet appointments. I mean, everything you can imagine, those have to go somewhere. And you are not a machine. So no matter how much you want to be writing your book or working on your project or doing whatever things that inspire you and lift you up, you can't be doing it with every single moment of your free time. You just can't. So you have to build in the buffer time. And that's what's hard for me. That was very hard the first time. It was easier to do it this time because I kind of had an idea from last time, what worked and what didn't. So you break down how many task blocks a day are you going to want to actually spend on your projects. So obviously I can spend more time on my days off than I can on my work days. But one thing that I can do is every morning before work, I make time to get up early and have my morning time. So I do my morning routine, I do my journaling, I can work on photos then, I can work on video edits. I can dedicate that time. I don't usually write in the mornings. Usually I only write in the evenings. I'll write in the mornings sometimes, like when we were on vacation, I wrote in the mornings because I went and got coffee or I sat on the beach or whatever. But like generally speaking, I am trying to be creative in the mornings, but I'm not awake enough to be writing very well in the mornings. So I'm a morning person in that I love being awake in the mornings and I love doing things in the mornings, but sometimes I still have a hard time waking up. Like this morning, trying to have my coffee. I set aside time every morning for my creative projects here. Sundays, we don't start work until 11, so when I work on Sundays, I have the longer time in the morning. Sometimes I'll put my longer run here and then have to move the time here. Like this is, you're not tied to this. You can be flexible. So I could say maybe on a day here that I have a bunch of errands I have to run on Wednesday, and so I'm not going to use my full 8 blocks here. And instead, my Thursday, I really don't have anything else to do besides work on my projects, so I might be able to make more space for my projects here. So what I've done is the orange boxes are how many task blocks I have that day. And you don't ever want to do, when I have like 8 or 9, that's like really pushing it. And it's mostly because I know myself on Mondays and Tuesdays before I go back to work. That's when I really have like peak motivation because it's like that procrastination thing kind of feeling for an ADHD person. And is that realistic? Am I going to do all 9 of these straight through? No, I have this buffer time on the beginning and the end, so I might split this up, but it's just a visual estimation of what you have. So I put in all of my Orange is all of my task blocks, and then I marked my buffer time in blue so that I could see clearly, like, oh look, I really do have this big chunk of time on Sunday evenings that husband and I can watch a movie, we can make dinner together, we can go for a walk, whatever. So once you set up your general speaking week, you tally up how many you have every day, and then you write it down here, and then you make your total. So on my long work week, when I'm only off 2 days and I work 5 days, I have 69 task blocks. On my shorter work week, when I'm only working 2 days and I'm off, I have 80. It seems like if you're 5 days off on this week, you should have way more than just 11 extra. But that's when I volunteer. That's when I go for my lash appointments. That's whenever I have my longer run. So I have more, but it's not like proportionately more, because that's when the other stuff of life comes in and I have to account for that. Next, once you have these all in place, you go to this page here. This is what it looks like blank. It's just a little calendar grid here for the full 3 months of HB90. So this one was for April, May, and June for quarter 2. And you go through and you say, okay, I have every week, I would start with 69 hours or 80 hours or 69 hours or 80 hours. But what else is going on in my life? So the way that I set this up, the first thing I do is I go through and I mark my work weeks. So that way I have a visual representation of what weeks are long work, which weeks are short work. So green on here is work again, keeping consistent here. So the green is weeks that I work, and then I did the pink here is travel. So April and May were very travel heavy for me. May especially is very travel heavy, and the end of June. So I actually accounted for, I may not actually start my HB90 quarter 3 until the first week of July. I haven't fully decided yet how I'm gonna do it, but I put it in my mind immediately, just knowing that I'm traveling that last week because that's Davecation. We're gonna go see Dave Matthews Band in a couple locations there. So I put into account, the pink is all the travel. That's a lot of travel. I love to travel, that's a passion of mine, that's a big part of my ideal vision for myself, but it's also very time consuming, especially, for example, I'm leaving tonight. Layla Grace and I are headed out to Fargo for my marathon. I'm driving so I can take her with me, and I'm gonna be driving 8 hours a day for the next 2 days. So it's not even like I have time on the plane that I can be doing things. So realistically, what I did was I said, okay, putting in my travel, then I had 2 work meetings. If you remember, I said I had a work meeting and then I had my CPR training. So those were extra work commitments that I have on those 2 days that I normally would have had off. So I put in, when I looked at these days and I looked at what are we doing on these days. So for example, Friday, April 5th, we were driving up to the lake because we were going to the lake with family for the eclipse. Well, we were going to be in a car and then we were going to be spending time with family. I wasn't going to have much time. I would have to pack in the morning and then all this travel time. So I figured on a normal Friday that I'm off, I have 15 task blocks. Realistically, 11 of those are going to be taken up in the car and spending time with family. So I took 11 off. Now, on the flip side, 2 weeks later when I went to go wild, I flew in on Wednesday, and then Thursday, we had just the registration and the opening party at night. And normally on Thursday, I would have a lash appointment, I would have dog walking, I would have something else going on. But I knew I was going to be in a hotel and feeling really motivated to do creative projects because I was around all these other creative-minded people. So I gave myself 8 extra task blocks for that day, knowing time that I had all my regular task blocks prior to the events in the evening. I had all these other task blocks because I was going to feel fired up and emotionally ready for it. So you can go both ways. You can look at it a week and say, man, this week I have nothing else going on and I feel like I'm going to be motivated because I have a deadline. Let me add some task blocks in and take away some buffer time. Or you can say, I need more buffer time because I have travel going on or whatever. Sometimes I'll say, I'm going to be on a plane, so theoretically on a plane I could work on something. It doesn't always work that way, but usually I can work in the airport. If I have a long layover, I might say, I have a long layover, I can work on editing a video, so I can add 4 task blocks while I'm sitting at the airport lounge or whatever. So you go through each week that way and say, what time would I normally have that I don't have, or what time would I normally have that I can add to? And you mark down for each week. So I had, with travel, a lot of weeks that were a lot less hours. Like, for example, the week we left for California a week and a half ago, I only had 38 task blocks available to me. I knew I was going to do some writing on our trip, so I knew I wasn't going to lose all of my task blocks, but you kind of have to estimate that. So you write down for each week what you actually are based off of what your estimates are, and then you tally it up. And I got 790 task blocks total for the entire quarter. For me, I went an extra step and I plotted out content planning for my YouTube channel. And this helped me see what day each weekly vlog ended, and then what day I'd be posting it, what day I'd be editing it. This really helped to lay out where I needed to go with these, so I knew how many task blocks to account for. And like I was saying, when I was accounting for vacation vlogs taking longer, I was able to put that in here. I made this extra plan. I printed this on my own and just added it in because it helped. I don't use like a content planning planner or anything. So this was, I've been doing my content planning here in my HB90. There's a space for recurring tasks that are your like admin things. I don't really use this page as much. I kind of put that into this schedule, but I do account for something that's not on this schedule that is a one-time thing that you do quarterly is your HB90. So Sarah says to account for about 30 task blocks or 15 hours to fully do these pages, to set it up. And as I said, for this one, for quarter two, I have a feeling I'm going to not finish it actually in quarter two, the setup, and I'm going to have to move it into quarter three because of the way my travel schedule is that last week of June. Unless I want to cram it all into June 30th, which I don't think I do. Next, you brainstorm your potential goals. I kind of already had an idea going through the first quarter of what I wanted to work on in the second quarter. And so my brainstorming, you can use all of this stuff if you have a bunch of ideas. My brainstorming was pretty simple because I basically knew what I wanted to do. So now we're on to my goals. My 3 goals for quarter two. My first one is plan and map out the details of upcoming trips. We had the family trip to the Finger Lakes for the eclipse, Dallas for Go Wild, our annual Central Coast trip, which is like Paso Robles, San Luis Obispo, Solvang, went to Sequoia National Park, my Fargo Marathon trip, and Davecation, and the summer road trip to Banff that my mom and I are doing. Husband will be out for part of it, but he's not driving with us. He's flying out and meeting us. So our family road trip to Banff this summer, which is going to be another like 18 days probably, like we did last summer. So those are all the trips that I'm planning. So plan and map out the details of the upcoming trips to maximize being present and not stressing or obsessing about plans while on the actual trip. So my goal is to really do the bulk of the planning and the details and like plan where we're going to go for the most part. We're going to see all of the hotels, all of that, but do a lot of the granular planning ahead of time. So that way I'm not wasting time the day of being like, where should we go to dinner? What kind of dinner, you know, what trails should we hike? Let me spend an hour looking up trails. I want to have that kind of stuff. Mostly, I mean, obviously you want to do some spontaneous things, but I want to have most of that stuff sorted out or have the options sorted out prior to going. So that way I can be more present on the trip. And I felt like if I made that a goal, then I would be more likely to stick to that and set aside time for it. Because last year when we did the trip, I did this, but I was like, I didn't set aside the proper time for it. And so I was like down to the wire. I mean, literally like every single waking hour for 5 days, setting up trip details. Goal number 2 is to continue building my YouTube community through consistent posting and engaging with my audience to get to 175 followers. I thought it was so helpful to have this as a goal last time, having that accountability that I check boxes off on my Notion and I can decide what days and set up like plans for what days. That was a huge game changer for me. So I kept that goal basically identical to what it was in the first quarter. And then goal number 3, which I have been calling my creativity regatta, is designate and plan creative time to journal, scrapbook, refill the well, and ultimately get. She says that you can separate it as like good, better, best. So I said good would be 75%, best would be 100% of the way through my first draft of Chalet Chalet. I can tell you the week before June, it's not going to get done in this quarter. And I recognize that. I don't know that it's going to get 75% done. We'll see how creative I feel in the evenings on this long road trip. But in any case, this was the goal that I set because you want to put on there a number, and she wants you to use a number that's out of your control. So I don't have control on how many followers I get. I don't really have control on how far I get through. It all depends on my creative energy and how much time I have for it. But she wants you to put that number on there, and that way you can assess, did my plan bring me to that goal or not? So those are my 3 goals. I have then broken things down into all of these. So what you do is you put down all of your projects that go under your goals. The YouTube one was pretty easy because I basically just transferred the info that I used last time. That really worked well for me. And then I included putting aside more time for vacation and travel vlogging. And then I put that all together. I basically like just copied this from the last one. So that went really easily. For my trip planning, I put down all the separate steps that I needed to do, such as we needed to research the eclipse trip. We needed a rental car. We needed to figure out restaurant reservations, sightseeing things I wanted to take my family to see. For Dallas and Go Wild, I wanted to research the area and find out like restaurants, coffee shops, places I could write, review the schedule, see what things I wanted to go to, what things I was looking forward to, you know, do my contact cards. That was part of it. For my Fargo Marathon, I needed to find out how to get the shuttle from our hotel to the start of the race. I had to choose which hotel we were going to stay at. I had to come up with a driving plan. Like, these are the kinds of things that I broke it down to. And then I tried to estimate the task blocks. I will tell you, spoiler alert, that I have not estimated these as well as I thought I did. Things have taken longer than I expected with these. That's a note for next time. Now I can use that information and be like, well, I thought each hotel would take me 1 task block. It's usually taking me 2 to research each hotel, because part of the reason is we travel with my dog, so we're a little bit more limited. We can't just pick any hotel. We have to find a pet-friendly hotel. When I'm staying by myself, I like to find a place that has meals included. Like, I have certain things that I want, and I wanted to make sure for the ride home that we had a place that had access to a hot tub so that I can soak after my run. So it took me a little bit longer to find hotels and make plans than I anticipated. So that's something that I know for the next time that I do trip planning to account for. My final goal, I try to be more specific with my time for my I call it creativity regatta, because if you're from Pittsburgh, you know, you got a regatta. And so we call everything, not everybody from Pittsburgh does this, but some of us from Pittsburgh call everything the regatta, because the regatta was such a big part of Pittsburgh history. Sorry, long story short. So I kept my morning routine on here, and then I kept my bullet journal setups, and then I put in the hours that I wanted to work on my book. So I put in 30 hours, so 60 task blocks in April, because I was doing Camp Nano. And then I wanted to do, at first I thought I would do 30 hours in May and June as well of working on my book. I didn't put a word count goal. I thought it was better to put a time spent goal, because I was doing some outlining, some brainstorming, and some actual writing. No editing yet, but I wasn't just writing. So I started off saying 30 hours, and then once I started to tally up all of my task blocks, I tried to make it more realistic and make it only 20 hours, which was still, I think, overestimating, but anyway. And then my scrapbooking, as I discussed earlier, is the hardest one for me to set aside time. So I tried to be really, really specific and granular about it. So I figured I wanted to finish December daily this quarter. So I thought I could do 2 task blocks per day. And then I put a question mark, because I really wasn't sure. Would it take me only 1 hour to do each day's spread? So like December 1st is 1 hour, December 2nd is 1 hour. I wasn't sure, so I put a question mark. Then my other thing is I'm working on my one little word project. So I wanted to do 4 task blocks for each. I set aside 4 task blocks, so 2 hours basically, to do each month. I really undershot this one, as I found out. This stuff takes me a lot longer to really think it through. I think once I'm doing it more, that might improve. But when I'm only doing it here and there, it is taking me a lot longer. But these are the estimates. So then you account for your quarter 3 planning time for HB90, which I said she says put aside 30 task blocks. And I went back and edited while I was doing all my calculating here and said, realistically, with day vacation being the end of June, I'm probably going to do the bulk of the quarter 3 planning on July 1st and 2nd when I'm off work. But it is the start of the quarter already. So I only set aside 14 task blocks in quarter 2 to work on it, knowing the way my schedule is. So this is the hardest part. You set aside all of the projects that you need to do for each goal. You're gonna set aside how many specific tasks are part of that later. But you have an estimate of how many task blocks each project is going to take, and then you tally them up, and then you add them up, and then you find the horrors of how many you think you need, and you compare it to how many you have available to you. So for me, I started off with 946. I start writing it over here because then I have to cut things and then make it work. So I started with 946 task blocks needed. And if you recall, how many do we have this quarter? 790. So I ended up doing a bunch of squeezing and changing and adjusting. So I took some things out here. Some things I changed, I factored in, like I had a bunch of pre-printed kits for my planner that I want to use. So I like cut that in half, thinking like half the weeks I'm gonna have one that's already pre-printed. I won't have to do that. I lowered my goal for editing that I wanted to do. That's whenever I lowered my goal for writing to be 20 hours instead of 30 hours, made these little adjustments. And then I went back to my weekly plans here and I realized, okay, realistically, if I want to make this work, I have to give myself a few more task blocks in here. So I added a couple days where I was like, okay, I don't have anything else going on. I can add a little bit more time in. That's a kind of a dangerous game to play, but I figured I would test it out. I figured this is my first quarter doing a lot of travel since I started doing HB90, so it was going to kind of be a learning curve, and I kind of gave myself that grace to be like, this may not go according to plan, but we want to just test it out and see how it goes. So all of those things being said, I got it to match it. So I went in a couple days and I got that up to 833, got these things down to 833, and then we finally had a match. Except that this is going to take you a long time. It's going to be a lot of finagling. It's going to be a lot of adjusting. It's going to be a lot of hard chats with yourself about what you can cut and what you can't cut. It's just how it is. It's just how it goes. When that is done, take a break, go for a walk, immerse yourself in nature, get woo-woo with the earth. You need a little break after that. That's the hard math part. That's the hard truths about yourself part. And then you move on to breaking down your projects into tasks. For my goal 1, I set each trip as a project, and then I broke down the tasks within that. Goal 2, I set up my different videos, plan with me's, vlogs, vacation week vlogs, since those are different. This video that I'm doing right now, I still want to do that 2023 flip through. It's not going to happen, I don't think. And then goal setting, which I ended up scrapping the idea of goal setting for Moxie Life for now. I don't really know how to film that video yet, because I'm doing so much of my goal planning in here, but whatever. So anyway, I broke these down to the types of videos and then how many for each week, how long it's gonna take me for each one. Goal number 3, this is where it got very messy, but I felt like I had a really better plan this time than I did last time. If you'll see, let me show you. If you'll see how I set this page up in quarter 1, I like kind of fizzled out and I was like, okay, I better get started on the other ones, because I was like, I figured, oh, I'll just figure this out as I go. And I really didn't go through and do this. So this time I was like, no, we're going all out. We're getting detailed. We're setting aside the task blocks. We're designating these days. You know, I really broke this down very, very specifically this time. Did it work? You'll find out in my quarter 3 video. We'll find out at the end of June if it worked or not. So this is the basic setup. Then you have other pages in here for project planning specifically. If you want to use those, you can do your future projects. I like this. This shows you your upcoming 4 quarters. So the remaining 2 quarters of 2024 and then the first 2 quarters of 2025. So if you have ideas, like I haven't used that yet this quarter, but I did use it last quarter. When you're like, that idea pops in your head and you're like, man, I really want to work on this thing. And you're like, no. Focus. You have a goal. You can put it in here. Like I had the idea, I was like, I need to make travel planning one of my goals. So I wrote it down in here, quarter 2, that was what I was gonna do. Future projects, when you can just put them in here, so that way you have the list, you know where it is, you're not gonna be like, where did I put that piece of paper? You have your list and you're like, okay, when it's time to do my next planning, what did I wanna do? I can look at this to create my list of things that I need to do, want to do, should do, whatever. Oh, I did actually use this too, because I wrote marathon training plan, keep that in mind, RE task blocks. And I did do that. I set aside more task blocks in quarter 2 because my long runs were getting longer closer to the marathon. Oh, good job, Fox. So that's the bulk of it. And then you get into the daily planner, which I'm not going to talk about in here. But this is where I was saying that you do your weekly review, you do your weekly setup, like what you want to work on that week, and then you can put it down in your daily pages. Not everybody uses these. I find that I am my most productive and I do my best when I do use these. I have not been really great about using them in the second quarter, and it has reflected on my ability to complete things. But this is available to you. I highly recommend using it. The more that I use this and I set up my days in here, the better I do. So, but I'm not going to go into like my weekly setup or show that or anything, but that's the idea. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how I have my Notion set up. So this is the part where you would make a Kanban board. If you're not familiar with a Kanban board, there are many, many videos on YouTube of people using them. What you do is, the traditional Kanban board is that you have to do, doing, and done. Whatever, however you phrase those, like not started, in progress, complete, however you want to phrase those three things, but that's the general idea. You take a board or a poster board or whatever, and then you take sticky notes like this, and then you write each of your individual tasks on the sticky notes, and then you pop them up in the not started or the to-do portion. As you're working on it, you can move it down, and then when you're done, you put it in the complete. And it's a visual thing to show you how much you've done, how much you have left to do, and it should help motivate you because you can see, oh my God, I still have all of this to do, or oh my God, look at the progress that I'm making. So for me, the way that my office is set up, I don't really have a lot of wall space that I could hang anything that I could easily access that would be visible for me all the time. And I will be honest, one of the reasons I was hesitant to do HB90 was, well, one of the main reasons was because until I started getting my ADHD under control, I really didn't have the mindset of having goals. I just kind of was like, what things do I need to do to get through my day? So my mindset changed and I had the brain freedom to feel motivated to make goals. So that was the big thing. But the second thing was I was terrified of the Kanban boards because I was like, I don't know where I would put that. I think it would stress me out. And then I have these issues with like object permanence that once you take your sticky notes off, then they're gone. You don't have this record. Like the reason I love paper planning and notebooks and things like that is because then I have this record. I can go back and be like, oh, look at my old planners and look at the things that I did. And so I was very like, about the Kanban board. So what I did was I posted in the group and I was like, hey, I really want to do HB90, but I'm nervous. And then Sarah responded to me and she was like, girl, it's okay. You have many options. You don't have to do a Kanban board. Someone said that they did a Kanban board in their notebook and then they saved it. They just did it on like an 8.5 by 11 page. Like, people gave me lots of ideas. What I ended up going with after trying multiple different programs, testing them out, was Notion. Notion is not super intuitive to use. Sarah had an amazing walkthrough of how she set up her Notion. I basically just looked at that video, followed it all the way through. I will try to remember to put a link to it in the description box under here so that you can use that same video. And Cindy Gunter-Baldo is the other one who did a great walkthrough of Notion. I'll see if I can find her video. I don't remember where I found hers. It might have been a while back, but hers was awesome too. So I basically used their two videos to learn how to set up my own Notion. And that's what I do my Kanban board in. So I'm gonna try to switch to showing you my screen and showing you how I do this. So let's just pray that the technology works. Otherwise, I don't know what we're gonna do, but I'm gonna try to show you right now how I set it up. So hopefully this is recording. This is my basic setup for my Notion. So you can like customize all of this stuff. I have a little widget with the time and the calendar. Of course, I love Joshua Tree, so I have that. I have a little picture of a fox. Richard's over here. You can put whatever. I try to link in a spreadsheet that I'm using to keep track of my photo edits here. I can't get it to work. I don't know. I don't know what's going on over here. And then I have in the middle here, so time to make your dreams come true, I have my spreadsheet of my goals. So I'm not going to go into all of my Notion the way that I have it set up, but I'll show you what this is. So this is things that I have assigned a date to, things that I'm supposed to be doing this week. Haha, it's kind of hard to see here. This gives me a visual of how many things that I have to do. I don't really look at this to see exactly what I have to do because as you see here, I have to scroll over. I can't fit it all on the one thing. I guess I can if I would shrink this, right? Yeah, there we go. But this will show you the details. So the important part that we're going to talk about is my little spreadsheet. So you can see over here, hopefully you can follow my mouse. I have my quarter one was in here. So this is what I was talking about that it said I did completed 79%. I had everything set up in here and I assigned them the same colors in here that I assigned them in my HB90 pages. And then you can see all the things that I put into here. I completed 79.126%. So every time I check one of these off, it adds it automatically adds it. And that to me was really motivating to be like, hey, look at me go. So we're on to, here's our quarter 2 setup. Now, we're only at 28.6% and it is May 28th. But June is the month that I knew I had the most time. So like, that's not totally unexpected to be that far behind at this point. But so you can see I broke down. These are each of my projects. So if you remember, I said, so my goals are here, first of all. So I have my 3 goals: trip planning, YouTube, and creativity regatta. I broke it down when I talked about my projects that I had on that page there. My Eclipse trip was one project. Go Wild Dallas trip was the second project, then Fargo. And then these are each of the tasks. So for my Eclipse trip, I had to book the rental car. I had to make our restaurant reservations for Friday and Sunday night. Saturday, we cooked at home. I had to make winery reservations because there were 7 of us going to a winery. For the Go Wild trip, I had to do my contact cards, my table mate gifts. Like I broke down the table, and then you can break these down as much as you want. Like you can get as specific and granular as you want with this. So for example, my table mate gifts, I wanted to go to Wild Card, which is like this little stationery store in Pittsburgh, and buy stuff. I had to order washi tape because I did black and gold washi tape. I had to order the other parts. I had candles and stickers that went in there. Then I had to assemble all of those things together. So I broke table mate gifts was one task that I broke into 4 separate tasks. Then you can, I don't always use this status. I don't always remember to do it because to me, done, I don't usually mark when it's in progress. I only mark when it's done. And to me, the check mark over here is when it's done. But you can put your dates on here. So what's nice about this is like I went through when I originally set this up and I set aside what dates. I looked at my little calendar of what days I had, what hours, and I estimated what days I wanted to do this. Now these I haven't changed these to green, but they're done. All the things that I had to do for this. Sometimes I forget to mark this thing, but that's fine. What counts over here makes the tally are these check marks over here. So I assigned these dates. So here's all of my trip planning and the days that I assumed that I would start working on it. Like I was like, okay, I'm going to set aside a task block on May 8th for this, a task block on May 9th for this. I broke it down that way. I went through using that calendar that I showed you that I added to the HB90 planner to do my YouTube. And then I put, okay, plan with me number 158. It's going to be 158 is going to cover the week of April 1st through April 7th. So I'm going to post it on April 4th in the middle of that week. So you put your dates over here. I'm going to scroll here. But I broke it down this specifically. So every single vlog has 2 steps. Every single plan with me has, I think, 4 steps because I include the filming and the kit. Like I got that specific so that way I can see, did I do each step of the thing? And you can just like copy and paste these as once you get the first one down, you can copy and paste. So you're not typing this over and over and over, don't worry. But then I broke down my creative planning and I broke it down much more specifically. I have to update this because I think I did write some of these days and I just didn't update it from my notebook. I've been tracking my writing sessions in a notebook as well. So this I don't think is updated, but in any case, so I set aside, okay, I'm going to work for an hour on each of these days on my writing. I put in here my morning routine. I didn't quite figure out. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to revamp this for quarter 3. I'm trying to figure out how to track if I did all the steps of my morning routine and like, could I do like a progress bar and say I did 5 out of 7 steps or whatever. But I really I started working on this, couldn't figure it out and was like, I don't really want to put the time in. So I kind of abandoned that. But I had all of my bullet journal setups here, my weekly goal spread check-ins. Again, I have to update this. I've done more than what's written on here. And then I did, like I said, my December daily. I was saying 2 task blocks per day. So 2 task blocks for December 1st, for December 2nd. We're on May 28th. Obviously, these days have passed and I haven't done that. So am I going to just abandon them? Am I going to reassign them? I don't know. I have to look at when I get back from my trip to Fargo because I can't work on these things really while I am away. I need to be here with my printer and all my scrapbooking supplies. So I may adjust this. The dates that are coming up, I may bump these back. I don't know. I haven't looked at that yet and I am going to look at that. But that's the nice thing about the flexibility of using the Notion is I can change this stuff. I can say like, oh shoot, I didn't work on that. I got to bump that up or, and then you can delete things out of here too. And you can say like, what, I know I'm not going to get this far and you can select this and you can click on delete. And then you could be like, we're not doing that goal after all. Like you can, or you could strike it out and then you have the record that you were going to do it, but you decided not to do it. So, but this really helped me to break things down. So I have my writing in here. every time I do a 1 hour writing session, so 2 task blocks, I check it off in here. That way I can keep track of how much I'm doing. And it really gives me this good visual representation of how much I'm working on these goals. So that's my Notion setup. That's how I use it. And then the nice thing is, so when I've assigned these things, when I go back to my home page here, like I said, it'll tell me this is this week. It shows this current week in here. And I can see, okay, I have 3 steps of our trip to Banff that I'm supposed to be planning this week. Okay, I have these vlogs and plan with me's that I have to get done this week. Now I have more than normal this week because I broke my vacation trip. I broke our trip to California down into 3 separate vlogs, so I have more on here than I normally would. So, and then of course this week we'll be starting the month of June, so I'll have to do all my monthly setup things for my bullet journal. So it tells you, like, you can see like, oh, I have a busy week, or some weeks it'll be like there's only a couple things on here, and I'm like, okay, I'm working a lot this week, or I'm traveling this week, so I don't have that much to do. So this gives you kind of a visual of every week, and then you go into your spreadsheet here and you can be like, oh, hey, here's everything that I have to do. And this looks like, when you scroll through this, look at this. This looks kind of like overwhelming. Like, holy cow, I have all these things to do. But then that helps me see. Like, for me, I really need that visual to see everything that I have to do. If I don't have this visual, then I'll just get overwhelmed. I will be like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what things I have time to do. You know, this helps me go like, okay, I have 4 hours today that I'm not working, that I don't have anything going on. I'm going to turn off my phone. What of these things can I accomplish? What do I have on my schedule for today? What other things can I put on my schedule for today? Like, it just helps me plan out my time so well. So I'm going to close this video out here. Hopefully this has given you an idea of how you could use HB90 in your life, how I use it personally. Like I said, for me, it was the game changer for how to do time management and time estimation with ADHD. It really, really just opened up my eyes to how to better account. Am I perfect now? Absolutely not. Do I still, as you can see when I'm talking through this stuff, I'm still overestimating, underestimating. But it gave me a much, much better handle on where my time is going, how I'm using my time, how much time I have, and what things actually do I want to be working on that I'm not giving myself enough time for. That was the big thing for me. So I highly recommend getting into Sarah's bootcamp class. It is starting on June 16th. Registration should be starting on Sunday, June 2nd. So this coming Sunday, if you're watching this like in real time. And I just can't recommend it enough. I will link below to how to sign up for it if you want to do that. And like I said, once you're in it once, then you have lifetime access to the course. She just asked that you buy the planner every quarter. So like I will go to her Etsy shop and buy my Q3 planner pages that I'm going to print. But you get lifetime access to redoing the course. You get access to a Facebook group where you can talk to everybody else and you can ask for ideas. And like if you're stuck on something, people can help you with that. You can share what your progress is. It's super welcoming. It's a great group. So I can't recommend it enough. So if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I will do my best to respond and answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I know this is another long one. I feel like my HB90 videos are just going to be long every time, and that's what it is. But thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you are new here. And as always, my friends, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!